What does Steven Spielberg, The Dark Knight, and a $500 student film have in common? One of Hollywood's greatest directors revealed his favorite movies of all time, and you won't believe what made the list. John Ford's The Searchers is one of the most influential westerns of all time, and for Steven Spielberg, it's deeply personal. The story follows Ethan Edwards, a Civil War veteran returning home after years away, only to face unimaginable loss. But beyond the gripping story, The Searchers also made history by revealing its behind-the-scenes techniques to the public, a first for Hollywood. Spielberg credits Ford's mastery of framing and movement as a key inspiration for his own filmmaking. He once said, "Ford celebrates the frame, not just what's inside it," likening his work to that of a classic painter. Incidentally, The Searchers isn't just a Spielberg favorite. It's one of Martin Scorsese's too. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is a horror classic that rewrote the rules for ghost stories. It follows Jack Torrance and his family as they move into the isolated hotel, where supernatural forces slowly push Jack into madness. While the film is now celebrated as a masterpiece, Spielberg admits he didn't love it the first time he saw it. But like many Kubrick films, it grew on him with time. Over the years, Spielberg has watched The Shining more than 25 times, citing its lighting and composition as major influences on his own work. He once said Kubrick's films require multiple viewings to fully appreciate their genius. Following Bruce Wayne as he battles the Joker's reign of chaos in Gotham City, Nolan's masterpiece raised the bar for what superhero films could be. Spielberg is one of its biggest champions, calling it one of the rare sequels that surpasses the original. He even pointed out how The Dark Knight was overlooked for Best Picture and Best Director in 2008, despite its groundbreaking impact. For Spielberg, it marked a turning point in recognizing blockbusters as serious contenders for major awards. And while it took Nolan 15 years to finally win his first Oscar for Oppenheimer, Spielberg maintains that The Dark Knight deserved its moment in the spotlight. David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia is the gold standard of epic filmmaking. Spielberg doesn't just recommend this film, he calls it his favorite of all time. It's the movie that inspired him to become a filmmaker, and he considers Lean his hero. Why? Because Lean managed to perfectly balance sweeping visuals with deep, resonant themes. Spielberg says, "What makes that film unlike anything that can be made again is that it was done naturally, with the elements of light, sound, and maybe the greatest screenplay ever written." Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai is one of the most influential films ever made. In this masterpiece, a group of samurai comes together to protect farmers from ruthless bandits. Spielberg calls Kurosawa the pictorial Shakespeare of our time, and the influence on his own films is undeniable. You can see echoes of Seven Samurai in the teamwork and tension of Saving Private Ryan or the methodical pacing of Minority Report. Kurosawa didn't just define a genre, he created a playbook for filmmakers like Spielberg to follow. Who would have thought a Marvel movie could impress the man who made Jaws and E.T.? Spielberg has praised plenty of superhero films, but James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy stands out. The story of Peter Quill and his ragtag team of misfits is funny, heartfelt, and unapologetically fun. Spielberg was especially impressed by its lack of cynicism and the way it felt fresh in a genre often weighed down by its own seriousness. As he put it, "When it ended, I left the cinema with the feeling that I had just experienced something new, free of cynicism." That's high praise from the guy who defined blockbuster filmmaking. Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey isn't just a movie, it's an experience. From the iconic opening sequence to the Stargate finale, this film challenges everything we think we know about evolution, intelligence, and the unknown. Spielberg has always been vocal about his admiration for Kubrick, but 2001 holds a special place in his heart. He even recalled a theater goer literally walking toward the screen during the Stargate sequence, mesmerized by Kubrick's vision. Spielberg summed it up best. "It was the first time I went to a movie and really felt like I was having a religious experience." It should come as little surprise, then, that Spielberg deeply admired the great Alfred Hitchcock, calling his 1960 film Psycho his favorite horror movie of all time when listing his all-time personal picks. Hitchcock's masterpiece left a huge impression on him, but their relationship? That's where it gets awkward. Spielberg tried multiple times to meet Hitchcock, but the master of suspense wasn't having it. According to actor Bruce Dern, Hitchcock even refused to meet Spielberg, calling him the boy who made the fish movie. His reasoning? Hitchcock felt ashamed for lending his voice to the Jaws ride at Universal Studios. When Spielberg compares you to Kubrick, Disney, and Lucas, you know you've made it. That's exactly what he told Denis Villeneuve about Dune Part 2. Spielberg called the film one of the most brilliant sci-fi movies he's ever seen. High praise coming from the guy behind E.T. and Close Encounters. And he didn't stop there, declaring Villeneuve one of the builders of worlds like Peter Jackson, Nolan, or Wes Anderson. Dune Part 2 is currently number 4 on the list of highest-grossing movies of 2024 with $714 million worldwide, and some fans already call this franchise the Star Wars of our generation. This isn't just any movie for Spielberg. The Greatest Show on Earth was the very first film he ever saw in a theater. This Technicolor circus epic left such a mark on young Spielberg that he recreated its train crash scene in his early Super 8 films. Decades later, he'd pay tribute to it in The Fabelmans. While Spielberg doesn't necessarily consider it a masterpiece, its impact on his childhood and career is undeniable. As he told CBS Sunday Morning, seeing that train crash on the big screen as a kid was the scariest thing I'd ever experienced in my entire life. For Spielberg, The Godfather wasn't just a great movie. It was almost too good. Coppola's iconic crime saga about the Corleone family left Spielberg questioning whether he should even continue directing, saying, "I felt that I should quit. I would never achieve that level of confidence and ability to tell a story." Luckily for us, he didn't quit. Spielberg and Coppola were part of the new Hollywood movement, reshaping the industry alongside peers like Scorsese and Lucas. But it's safe to say that The Godfather set the bar ridiculously high for all of them. If you've never seen Fantasia, you're missing out on one of the most groundbreaking animated films ever made. It's basically Disney showing off. 8 classical music pieces set to stunning animation, with segments like The Sorcerer's Apprentice starring Mickey Mouse. This was also the first movie ever shown in theaters with stereo sound, so it was ahead of its time in more ways than one. Spielberg has often credited Fantasia as a major inspiration for his work, especially the visuals in E.T. Remember the Mother Night scene in E.T.? Spielberg said it was directly inspired by the cosmic imagery of Fantasia. When people call Citizen Kane the greatest movie ever made, they're not kidding. The story follows Charles Foster Kane, a newspaper tycoon, and unpacks the mystery of his dying word, Rosebud. Spielberg has called it an icon of courage in filmmaking, praising Orson Welles for his boldness in making such a risky movie. From deep focus shots to breaking traditional storytelling rules, Citizen Kane is still influencing filmmakers decades later. Spielberg's words sum it up. It's one of the great American experiences in cinema. Enough said. François Truffaut's The 400 Blows is a coming-of-age masterpiece. It follows Antoine, a young boy who feels completely misunderstood by his family and society. Things spiral as he's sent to a juvenile detention center, and you can't help but feel every ounce of his struggle. This movie hit Spielberg so hard that he reached out to Truffaut, who ended up acting in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's right. One of the greatest directors of all time trusted Spielberg so much, he signed up for his first and only acting gig. Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life is the ultimate feel-good movie about a man on the brink of losing everything. George Bailey, played by James Stewart, gets a visit from an angel who shows him what life would be like if he never existed. Spielberg has cited Capra's masterpiece as a major inspiration throughout his career. Reacting to Spielberg, a 2017 HBO documentary about his life, Spielberg shared a personal connection he felt with the film's protagonist. Like George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. At the end of watching Susan Lacey's documentary, I realized how many friends I truly have in this world.